UDS, a pride and a hope. Universities is an icon of a nation. We are a light and a pride and a beacon of development. Our knowledge is the circles.
Please be seated. Thank you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to the Dr. Andan Academic Chamber and for the 7th inaugural lecture. To begin, may I call on Dr. Yekwa and Alhaji Nuruddin Isa Abubakar to give us the Christian and Muslim prayer respectively. To step in for us, please, to give us the Christian prayer. Thank you very much, Dr. Yekwa.
Shall we rise up for prayer? Holy Father, we are privileged this afternoon to be gathered here. Many of us have traveled from far and near. You've granted the journey mercies and brought us here safely. This is an occasion in the university, so important and something that we put pride in. We pray as we begin this meeting, committing everything that we do here into your hands, that you will guide us and take us through from this beginning until a successful end. We thank you, Father. We ask that your name will be glorified at the end of everything. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We are very grateful to Almighty Allah for guiding us, for giving us the opportunity to witness this great and memorable occasion. Oh Allah, once again we thank you for making it possible for all staff across the 4 campuses of this noble institution to attend the 7th inaugural lectures. We ask Allah to continue to guide and protect the management of UDS, as well as the entire staff and students. O Almighty Allah, increase the presenter in patience and wisdom as he delivers this historic lecture, so that at the end of the program, we continue to praise and thank you. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, praise be to Allah, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, the most gracious, the most merciful, master of the day of judgment. You alone we worship, and you alone we seek for help. Show us the trace path, the path of those on whom you have bestowed your mercy, not the path of those who ask for your anger, nor the path of those who go astray. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, ar-Rahmanir-Rahim, Maliki yawmiddin, iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, ihdinas siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim, ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin.
Thank you very much, Alhaji Nuruddin. It's now my pleasure to invite the Registrar, Dr. E.B.T. Zakaria, to introduce the chairperson for today's
senior members,
senior staff, junior staff, invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I've been told to introduce the chairman. The difficulty is when you know somebody's profile so much or too much, you don't know where to start and where to end. You are told to introduce the person, especially if the introduction is something you have done many, many times. I've introduced the chairman many times, and I know too much about his professional and academic life. So today, permit me to say, or to introduce him in only one or two sentences. The chairman of education joined the university about 25 years ago. The chairman joined the university as a young fellow immediately after attaining his postgraduate qualification, and that is a master's degree in animal science. The chairman, through hard work, commitment, and determination, saw himself going through all the ranks in the academic progression ladder, on the academic progression ladder of the university. Lecturer, senior lecturer, associate professor, and then professor. The chairman also had the opportunity, through a search or vigorous search, he had the opportunity to be identified and appointed as the Vice Chancellor of this university. This position, of course, attaining this position was a product of several achievements in the university, holding several administrative positions in relation to university management or academic management. Exam officer, head of department, dean, and dean in charge, and of course, pro-vice chancellor. The chairman also served on several boards and committees of the university: academic board, executive committee, finance committee, development committee, tender committee, and so on. And he represented convocation professorial on the university council. Certainly, one with all these credentials, one going through the mill and getting experience at all these levels should be considered as the Vice Chancellor material. So the chairman's apex of his academic and administrative life in UDS was when he was appointed the Vice Chancellor of this university. He is 3 to 4 years old now as a Vice Chancellor, and he has chopped a lot of, he has gained a lot of experience and led a lot of very useful programs. And all these have culminated in bringing the university this far. Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my singular pleasure to introduce people. Professor Gabriel, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. You know I'll greet you. If you don't respond, I will not talk. Thank you, Mr. Registrar. I will pay back at the appropriate time. Distinguished invited guests, convocation, senior staff, junior staff, I would like to, on behalf of the university, welcome you once again to this auditorium for an inaugural lecture. According to the program, this is the 7th. It shows we are making progress. We are almost doing 1 lecture per year, but I believe soon it will change to 2 or 3 per year. I welcome you all to celebrate one of our own. The registrar said I came here a young man, and this gentleman we are going to talk about also came here a young man. I came 1 year before him, but then we're all known as Mr. So we've all grown, and that shows that we are growing. So I thank you all for leaving your jobs and whatever you are doing. And most especially, I have some 2 special guests here who were here for my own inaugural lecture, and they are here today. Professor Joe and the wife came all the way from Kumasi. So that shows how important this occasion is today. I will now go on and introduce who is going to talk. Perhaps some of you know him. Somewhere along the line, you will see that he's a Tamale boy. This gentleman was born in August 1961 to Mr. and Mrs. Quainoo, both of blessed memory, in secondary in the Western region, although they all come from Ojobi in the central region, Gomwa Ojobi. He had his initial primary education in Peki and Ho in the Volta region, and then continued to Bagabaga Primary School and Middle School. So you see where the Tamale life started. After Bagabaga Primary School and Middle School, he spent his entire secondary school life, those days 7 years of secondary school, at the Tamale Secondary School from 1976 to 84. In 1990, he graduated from the University of Cape Coast to BSc Agriculture and Diploma in Education. He then went on to Helsinki, Finland, to do his master's. He got a job with the University for Development Studies in 1997. Between 1997 and 2002, he took up several responsibilities within the university, serving as a hall tutor on third trimester practical training program and other responsibilities. He was then awarded Government of Ghana scholarship for his PhD in plant tissue culture, molecular biology, and gene plasmid conservation at the University of Reading from 2003 to 2007. In 2008, he obtained a professional development diploma management certificate from the Business School of Stratford, UK, in finance and human resource management. He then came back to the University for Development Studies and first served as the head of the Department of Agronomy. During that time, I became the Dean of Agric, and I decided to change his life for him with his consent. I approached him and said, looking at your thesis, I think you should fit into biotechnology more than agronomy, and he agreed. So today he's talking about biotech. So that's how we did it. So from agronomy, he became the head of biotech department, and under his leadership as the head of department, we set up biotechnology and molecular biology department, as well as food technology department, 3-in-1, agri-biotech, molecular biology and biotechnology, and food technology, 3-in-1, and he was the head of that. And at the same time, he was the vice dean of Agric. He then became the substantive dean of Agric about 3 years ago. He has extensive research experience, especially in 3 crops, cocoa, and the share he is going to talk about today. He is a member of several research associations. We have Research Association of United Nations University for Natural Resources in Africa, and he is also a member of National Biodiversity Committee. He has over 100 scientific publications, including 62 refereed journal papers which have been refereed and published in quality journals, 62, 31 conference proceedings, and 26 non-conference proceedings, and a book. He has supervised several PhDs, masters, and uncountable BSc program, a student. This gentleman is also involved in church business. He's not just an academician, he's also a churchman. And he belongs to the Methodist Church of Ghana. He is a class leader, a leader of the Bethel Cathedral Tamale, and served for several years as the society steward. He is an active member of the Association of Methodist Men's Fellowship. I believe they had a program here which we hosted them, where he served as a vice chair. And now the chairman of the fellowship in the Northern Ghana Diocese. I think it comprises the whole of Tamale, Upper East, Upper West, and the new regions. He is a conference member of the Methodist Church of Ghana, serving on several committees. He is also the diocesan treasurer of the lay movement of the Northern Ghana Diocese of the Methodist Church. I will not be surprised if he becomes a bishop one day. He is a patron of several organizations. I know he's married, and I believe he has one wife because he's a churchman. Unfortunately, I don't know the number of children he has. I think there are about 3 or 4. So, ladies and gentlemen, this profile fits Professor Abed Kojo Quainoo, your lecturer for this afternoon. Thank you.
The Vice Chancellor, the Registrar, Pro-Vice Chancellor, other principal officers, representatives of other institutions, deans and directors, heads of departments, members of the academic board, members of convocation, distinguished invited guests, students and alumni, family and friends, the press, ladies and gentlemen. I am greatly honored to be given this opportunity by the Vice Chancellor of the University to welcome you all to my inaugural lecture on an important commodity of the North, which contributes significantly to the economy of the country. I vividly remember way back in 1997 when my father was transferred from the Volta region to the Nori region as a social worker. Our long journey from Ho to Tamale, which took 4 days to complete, with the entire family in his small blue Opel Cadet car. By then, the Techima-Tamale portion of the present highway was not in existence. It was a jungle with all sorts of colorful wildlife which are no longer around. On entering Kintampo, and for the rest of our journey to Tamale, my father recognized the persistent presence of this special tree. He took his time to ask for the name of the tree and its uses during the Hamatan season in Tamale, and had over 5 kilograms of the butter in our luggage. 2 weeks on arrival in Tamale, where most of our values, morals, and virtues were formed, my father asked us to write an essay on our trip from Ho to Tamale, and strangely, I was tasked to write an essay on the shea tree. My dad had the conviction that the shea tree was too big for our understanding, and there was a need for an in-depth study of the tree. He was delighted to know that the shea tree was one of the commodities I have been working on, and always urged me to look beyond the butter. However, it was one of my students, Ms. Ofosu, who is currently working with the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, who started it all when in 2010, she approached me if I would be interested in supervising her project work on the shea latest. That is how my passion for the shea tree, which has first started to involve colleague lecturers and students, started. Ladies and gentlemen, my research background is broad, from plant production, seed science, horticulture, tissue culture, germplasm conservation, biotechnology, wet and dry chemistry, and management. I have worked on several commodities involving cereals, legumes, root and tuber crops, vegetables, and the tree crop. Very often, I ask myself, where do I belong? I think I have a soft spot for the tree crops, which most scientists, especially those in academia, will avoid simply because it takes a long time to gather meaningful data on them for scientific publication. For me, all my interesting publications are on the tree crops, cocoa and the shea tree, of which I have a special passion for the shea. Ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about the shea tree, all that comes to mind is the shea butter. Hardly do we mention any other product of the tree. There is therefore the need for us, especially those in the research community, to know and understand the tree. I have therefore chosen to present the shea tree in a different way, and today I am here to deliver my inaugural lecture on the science of the shea tree. Ladies and gentlemen, the shea tree has such great untapped potential, such that if properly researched into, can be exploited for the generation of employment opportunities for millions of Ghanaians. This inaugural lecture on the topic, Unearthing the Hidden Potentials of the Shea Tree, seeks to create the needed awareness for scientists and researchers to implement effective policies for the management of the shea tree, particularly for less known products, to generate more income for the rural farmers in northern Ghana. We need to be brave to take bold and strong decisions on the science of the shea tree to maximize its potentials. With these short opening remarks, I would like to crave your indulgence to journey with me through this inaugural lecture. Thank you. So this is my inaugural lecture. The title is Unearthing the Hidden Potentials of the Shea Tree, Vitellaria paradoxa. This inaugural lecture focuses on the shea tree with the aim of unearthing the hidden potentials of the tree. The shea tree, Vitellaria paradoxa, is utilized extensively in the semi-arid savanna parkland from Senegal in the West Africa, where the subspecies paradoxa is mainly found, to Sudan, Uganda in the east of Africa, where the subspecies Lolitica is prominent. Shea covers the entire northern Ghana with a potential annual yield of about 130,000 metric tons of shea products. It is an important multi-purpose tree and serves as the principal source of income for the rural population in the Sahel region. Shea products are good for rural poverty reduction in northern Ghana, since they are sources of livelihood for women in the rural sector. Currently, shea butter fat is the primary and the most important product from the shea tree, but utilization of additional hidden potentials of the tree is yet to be tapped in. First, studies of the shea latex have revealed that this material has comparatively low protein content, which makes it more suitable for production of items like balloon, gloves, and condoms, since the chances of latex allergy is likely to be low. Second, the shea nut industry generates tremendous volumes of waste products with only minor economic use. However, the shea nut shell waste has been found effective for phytoremediation of heavy metals in contaminated soils and water. Third, we are in the era of biochar, and the biochar of the shea nut shell has been successfully used to manage nematodes in tomato crop production and to improve soil fertility. Fourth, how do we generate adequate and superior planting materials for the shea industry? This is a question that I throw to all of us, especially the young and upcoming scientists. Somatic embryogenesis may be the way out. Hence, research on the shea tree adaptability, latex and waste volatilization technology to harness shea-derived products is expected to support a sustainable empowerment of the shea parkland economy. This inaugural lecture is meant to do two things. First, to present the other side of the shea tree, which has not attracted serious research interest and attention. And then secondly, to present my thoughts on the way forward for the shea tree. I said my thoughts. So over here, I'm presenting myself for criticisms and share of ideas. Before I continue, I would like to give a brief description of the shea tree. The shea tree is in the family Sopotaceae, under the acceptable name Vitellaria paradoxa, formerly called Vitellaria Pemum paradoxum. Shea happens to be a neglected woody plant in terms of mainstream domestication, despite a long tradition of utilization by rural people. The tree remains essentially a wild resource across its range, stretching from Senegal in the west to Uganda in the east of Africa. The source species, Nilotica, is found in East Africa, and I want us to take note of this. Nilotica is found predominantly in East Africa and its catchment area. The other subspecies, that is the Paradoxa, is found mainly in West Africa. And I want us to also identify this, that the Paradoxa is found mainly in West Africa. So this is just some pictures of the shea tree. The first one happens to be the beautiful leaves of the shea tree. Then this is the tree in flowering. These are the nuts being formed. Okay, so these are the leaves, beautiful leaves. Okay, I'll use this one. These are the leaves. This is the flowering of the tree. This is the fruiting, and then this is the dense canopy of the tree. In Africa, the shea tree is found, as I said, stretching from Sudan or Uganda to Senegal, across nearly 20 different countries. The species range almost unbroken form, or in an unbroken belt, approximately 5,000 kilometers long by 500 kilometers wide from Senegal to Uganda. In Ghana, the shea tree grows mainly in northern Ghana, where the climate is drier as compared to the south. However, we have spare shea trees cover in Brown Afro, that is the former Brown Afro region, Ashanti, Eastern, and Volta region in the south of the country. So this is a map of Ghana, and the green dotted area are the shea growing areas where we can find shea growing in Ghana. So over here, like I said, I'm presenting myself, I'm putting myself okay, so I'm presenting myself before you, and these are my ideas. So I expect constructive criticisms as we go along, and we can do that later on after this presentation. So I will discuss my thoughts on the following: characterization of the shea tree, shea lattice, germplasm conservation, and propagation of the shea tree. The first one is molecular characterization of the shea tree. And I want us to take a good look at this picture. You realize that, like I indicated, the Paradoxa is found mainly in West Africa, and then the Nilotica is found in East Africa. So this is West Africa, and this is East Africa. You realize that in East Africa, the dots are basically bluish. That is the Nilotica. When you come to West Africa, it's a combination of the blue and the reddish. This is a very important information, very vital. And if we are supposed to understand or develop the shea industry, we have to spend all our time understanding this. If we fail to do that, we may get the shea industry wrong. In West Africa, like I indicated, as we can see from the picture, we have the reddish and the bluish, meaning that it's a combination of the Nilotica and the Paradoxa. indicating that the resource base over there is so vast, so rich. And unfortunately, we have not done any molecular characterization of the materials there. So actually, we don't know the resource material over there. And since we have the East African and the West African varieties there, it also indicates that there may be possible crosses, a combination of the two materials. So if we are supposed to do any meaningful work on the share tree, then we have to know exactly what is there. And I indicated, unfortunately, we have not done that. So we have to go back to do a meaningful work. When we identified this group, together with my colleagues, we decided to find out what is actually happening there. So we decided to use indigenous knowledge to see the resource-based material over there. So together with my colleagues, we went to Chiroyi around Yankola, where we engage farmers to help us use indigenous knowledge to characterize these materials. The farmers were able to characterize the materials using the texture of the fruit, the sweetness, the thickness of the fruit, etc. And they help us to identify the various trees based on those lines. So what we did was we painfully picked nuts based on the trees. It was very painful. And then we extracted the butter based on the farmers' indigenous knowledge. And ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you that our findings indicated that there were 5 different materials, resource materials over there. Some were very fluid, like the East African nuts. Let me take a step back. You know, the East African nuts, they are fluid, while the West African one is solid. So when we did that characterization, we realized that some of the butter were very fluid, like the East African ones. Some were as hard as the West African ones, and then the rest were in between. So we came out with different shea butter with different premium. And I must indicate that when you compare the West Africa and the East Africa butter, the East African butter, being so fluid, has a higher premium than the West African one. In other words, the West African ones goes into the food items like chocolate, biscuits, etc. But the East African ones goes directly into the pharmaceutical and perfume industry. So they have a better value than the West African. So using indigenous knowledge, we identified 5 different lines of shea butter. But unfortunately, we cannot rely on indigenous knowledge, because what is indigenous knowledge to you over here may differ from the other group, etc., etc. In other words, it's not reliable. So what really we have to do over here is to do the genetic characterization of the shea tree. And once that is done, then we have the basis to be able to work on the shea tree. If we are unable to do this, we'll get the whole story of the development of the shea tree wrong. So, as I indicated, we use indigenous knowledge, and this is what happened. Now, let me move on to the shea lattice. The bark of most trees is a complex network of lattice vessels. Each vessel is merely a 1/3 of the thickness of the human hair and exudes lattice when the bark is cut. In the chemical industry, the term lattice is applicable to any emulsion or polymers, including synthetic, rubber, and plastics. Aside the natural lattice being a carrier of various nutrients, the lattice also acts as a protective fluid against insect predators on the tree. The shea tree has a great untapped capacity for producing large amounts of lattice that can constitute an important source of raw material for the gum and rubber industry, which can create employment opportunities for millions of Ghanaians. Research on potential uses of the shea latex from the shea tree is practically non-existent. We started this work with my colleagues at the Faculty of Agriculture, and I think gradually we are making progress. Now, if we take the natural rubber, the tapping is a process by which the latex is collected from the rubber tree. The latex is harvested by slicing a glove into the bark of the tree at a depth of 1/4 of an inch with a hook knife. The tree must be approximately 6 years old and 15 centimeters in diameter in order to tap the latex. So this is just a picture of the shea latex being tapped. The latex is the whitish material that exudes. So these are the materials, and the last one is when it is refined. So potential uses of the shea latex. First, studies of the shea latex have revealed that this material has comparatively low protein contents when compared with the natural rubber. And we know from theory that the lower the protein level, the less the risk of allergy. Since the shea latex has a low protein content as compared with the natural rubber, the knowledge tells us that when it comes to the issue of allergy, the shea latex may have a comparative advantage. Additionally, shea latex can form an important component for fabrication of composite bioplastics using the designer starch, a highly innovative starch rubber blend to help solve one of the most urgent global problems related to plastic pollution. Work that we are doing indicates that if we are able to add some starch and other materials, we come up with materials that is not as lasting like the rubber that we have, which degrades very fast. Here I would like to compare the natural rubber with the shea tree again. You know, the problem with the shea tree is that the shea tree is woody, whilst the natural rubber is herbaceous. So they are two different things. So we know that the natural rubber exudes a lot of latex, whilst we'll be fortunate if the shea latex can exude for 1 hour. So straight away, there's a challenge. The need for us, if we are supposed to make progress, to understand the botany of the shea tree. In rubber, another issue is that tapping is done to scratch the surface of the champion to ensure latex flow. You don't just scratch the surface of the rubber tree and then you have the latex flow. There's a tissue or an organ known as the champion. You have to scratch the surface before the rubber latex will flow. In the case of the shea latex, we've not gotten there yet. We don't know where that champion is. So this indicates that if we want to make progress, then we have to study the botany of the shea tree to identify the location of the champion. I believe we can find the location of the champion on the shea tree. Once that is done, then we stand a better place of ensuring efficient latex flow. Then interestingly, in the case of the rubber, tapping is not just done, it's an art. You have to do it exactly at 45 degrees Celsius because the vociferous vessels are arranged in a clockwise direction. So if you exceed 45 degrees or you don't get up to 45 degrees, you will not get an economic flow of the rubber latex. So we are also of the view that for us to understand and then get an effective flow of the share lettuce from the share tree, there's a need for us to study the botany of the tree and then ensure that we come up with the appropriate angle to tap the lettuce for us to make progress. So this is the share tree. Sorry, this is the rubber tree which is being tapped. And that angle is the 45 degrees that I'm talking about. If you go below or above it, you will not get an economic flow. Then there's this popular cry, and this goes to those who do the picking of the nose. They are interested in the butter, so they have to pick the nose. And now we are also saying that let's do tapping. So already there's a conflict. Science or knowledge or common sense will tell us that once we begin tapping the share tree, definitely yield of the nuts will go down. So unfortunately, our colleagues who are interested in the nuts are not in favor of the share lettuce tapping. But I want to assure you that if you visit any share parkland area, you will realize that it's not all share trees that bears fruits. A lot of them do not bear fruits, and invariably they end up as charcoal or firewood. So at least we can identify these trees and then ensure the tapping once we find an economic use for the lettuce. This will yield additional income. Now let's move on to germplasm conservation. Those of you from Upper West, Naloli, Tumu area will attest to the fact that you are losing most of your share trees. The share trees are being removed. If you go to Pusika, Boku area, the same thing is happening. A lot of the materials are being encroached. And the simple reason is that we are in an area of urbanization, and real estate people are at work. And unfortunately, our chiefs are also, or our elders are also ready to sell any piece of land. And on this land, we have the share tree growing. So gradually, we are losing the stock. If we are not very careful, a day will come where we will not be able to have economic trees to generate the butter. The question is, do we really know the differences in our share trees to enable us gather and conserve them, maybe in a botanical garden? And this goes back to the characterization that I talked. If we are going to conserve materials in a garden to ensure that they are preserved, we just go and then pick any materials? The question is that will not help us. So there's a need for us to understand the genetics of our share materials, characterize them, and when we are preserving them in the botanical garden or in any form, we know exactly what we are picking and what we are conserving. So as I indicated, we have not characterized our share tree, and it is very important we do that as soon as possible. Other than that, whatever we do in terms of developing the tree will not yield the expected results. And let's also understand that share is a tree crop and has a long gestation period. Once you develop it and it's wrong, for several years it will be there and it will not yield any economic value. So for us to avoid that and then cut down on costs, let's do the characterization. And over here, I'm appealing to all those who have the resources to make available money to be able for us to do this characterization should come forward. It is very important. If we don't do this, I can assure you that whatever we do in terms of developing the crop will be wrong. Now let's look at propagation of the share tree. Traditionally, share is propagated by seed. When you go to certain areas, even getting a seed or even allowing a seed to germinate is a problem. The planting of share trees are not performed on cultivar lines. That is, we've not done the prioritization, which may be a disadvantage to the establishment of where we are now moving. The encouragement is that we should move into the era of share plantation. So if we are going to do share plantation, what are we going to use? We must know the material. This technique needs to be improved through further research to permit the multiplication of superior trees. In the face of shortening bush fallow cycles and increasing pressure on fuel wood resources, which threatens the population of the tree in North Ghana, there is an increasing need to generate and conserve genetic resource based on the share tree. Furthermore, recent calls in Ghana to move from the present state of share tree cultivation to the establishment of share tree plantation requires planting share trees of known genetic status on a plantation. Tissue culture techniques such as somatic embryogenesis has been routinely used both as a means of propagation. The technique has been applied on tree crops such as cocoa to generate uniform planting materials. The technique has also been successfully applied on cocoa and cassava to generate disease-free planting materials from cocoa solid shoot virus infested tree and cassava mosaic infested trees, respectively. Tissue culture techniques through somatic embryogenesis should be applied to establish a protocol for the generation of somatic embryos for the share tree. Once a robust protocol for the share embryogenesis is established, clonal probables for mass propagation of the share tree will become possible to pave the way for the establishment of commercial share plantations. So this picture over here is part of my PhD work I did on cocoa. In cocoa, I work on generating disease-free materials from cocoa solid shoot infested diseases. And this is the cocoa one, which I just want. Okay, which I want. Okay, so it is not any elaborate. I was just about to show a picture on the screen. That is about my last but one slide. So like I'm saying, this was part of my PhD work where I work on cocoa somatic embryogenesis. And this picture is a cocoa flower. This is the bud, cocoa bud. When it is open, you realize that there are 5 structures in there, which are the stamens. This is an extraction of 1. So this is teased and then placed on a media. So these are various stamens. And then they go through callus formation. Through callus formation, we are able to generate somatic embryos. And ladies and gentlemen, when we say somatic embryo, it simply means a naked seed. An embryo is a seed, but it's so delicate in the sense that it has no protective cover. So once the seed is generated, we then convert it into a plantlet and gradually into a tree. I believe that once this has been done for cocoa, it has been done for the palm nut, it has been done for citrus, we can do likewise for the share tree. And I believe that this is possible. And I always say that if we are able to get about 2 young scientists, lock them in a small room, we get all the reagents and chemicals for them, and only provide them constant supply of tea and coffee. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm of the conviction that in 2 to 3 years, we should be able to get these embryos. Once we have the embryos, we get the plantlets, and then this will be the tree that will be transplanted onto the field for the share plantation. This is very crucial. It generates large volumes of seeds, embryos, and once we are able to convert them, we can have large volumes of plantlets for the share industry. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe it's possible for the share. It has taken too long, and no one will spend his money doing this. If I say no one, I mean the donors, because this is not their commodity. So we here have to encourage ourselves to be able to do this work. Okay, I would like to invite all of you to watch Tabia TV of Multi TV on Sunday, 5th May, where I'll be celebrated. The time is 8:30 p.m. You are all welcome. If I don't see your face, wahala for you. Thank you very much.
Can we give him another hand? I know that most of us were lost because we didn't understand the terms. Some few months ago, we were here. There was a share presentation, but it was on the social science. And I promise you that very soon we'll come to the hardcore science. You'll see one today. Germplasm, conservation, and people will be wondering what is he talking about. But that is for the share tree to become useful and more productive and to help us generate more wealth. I will not attempt to summarize what he did, but the title is Unearthing the Hidden Potentials of Share Tree. Vatillaria, I asked him to show me how to pronounce it. It's a Vatillaria paradoxa. And we see these trees around. He was talking about the estate developers cutting them. But we ourselves, we also cut them for funerals. I'm told that when an important person died, it means one share tree will also die. That's what we've been doing. We cut the tree branches and keep them for funerals. Is it not true? Then also, there was a time we were cutting the share trees. Thank you. There was a time we were cutting the share trees for mango trees. The mango trees came up, they produced fruit, we couldn't sell them, and they are standing there. We start burning them. So you see how we can shift from one end to another. But this technology he's talking about is to produce a share plantation. We concentrate the trees on a location, and we get all the benefit from it. We will not be competing with it for putting up filling stations, putting up houses, or growing mango. So I think they are doing something that needs to be supported. We also talk about the various resources that are there, the different varieties. My first time of knowing that there are different varieties was in the US. When we got there, they started talking about shea butter from West Africa and that from East Africa. And I was surprised that over there they know the difference, here we don't know it. So I think it's time for us to start doing that. And I will encourage all the young scientists coming up to team up with him. I believe we can do better now that we have a biotechnology department. They will go into the details for us to produce a share tree that we can name it, perhaps Nyampala something or UDS something. Like we have the palm trees in the south where they have been named after the places where they've been developed. I hope that should be your target. By the time you retire or you produce somebody to inherit you, and the heir apparent should come up with that. So on this note, I would like to call those who have to come in and, do you have something to say again? Or they should just come in? Come and give him congratulations for the work done. And as usual, I'll start with his roommate and the better half. So I'm going to start with the roommate. If the roommate is here, you know yourself. So come and congratulate him, followed by the children if they are here. What are the children? Where are the young Quainoos? Come out and congratulate Daddy. Yes. Yes. He always tells me that in his house he has people he will have male in-laws, not female in-laws. You can see the effect. Now the family, starting from the elder ones, please come and congratulate him. Yes. Yeah, I know his parents are late, but I said these are standing in for the parents, so let them come. So we move on to, the brother is there, he came all the way from the US. And the sisters and all those family, the extended family members who are here, please come in the line. Please come. Well, the brother is rope because he's also a professor. Well, people want to say full professor, but also professor. I will go on our adopted parents. We are twins when it comes to adoption. Professor and Mrs. Jehu to also come and congratulate him. I don't know who is the senior among the two of us. Maybe we'll look at our birthdays and see who is the senior. Thank you. Now let me go to the Faculty of Agric. But let me start from the principal of the campus who used to be the dean of Agric before, and all the young professors and the professors in Agric and Nampala campus come and congratulate you. Where are you? Please come. Yes. high table, registrar and his team, please calm down. I'm sure there are some of the Methodist Church reps here. I've not seen any bishop around, but I can see some people from the church. Yeah, they are okay. If there's any minister here, please, and the church members who have come because of this function, please, can you come out and congratulate him? Oh, yes. Since it's the late chairman, if you don't come, you are in trouble. I think there are some other deans here from different faculties who are available. Please, you can also come. And the senior man, Dr. Tenor, please, you are invited. So after this group, we will come, all the other deans around, come and congratulate you. So have the other deans come already? The other deans who have not had their chance, please come. Nabrongowa, Tamale, if you are here. Oh, this is a delegation from outside. Well, they didn't get a chance to sit down. Okay, sorry. There are some things behind you, your colleagues. It is now my turn. That's my privilege. Well, he whispered I have something else to say, so in some few minutes and it will be over.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have some two things over here that I would like to reintroduce to you. They all happen to be professors in their own disciplines. I'm only making reference to Professor Mrs. Jewu and Professor Peter Jewu. special personalities in my life. I think we came to UDS roughly at the same time. And what they've done for me, I don't want to step through it. When it comes to academic, social life, planning for pension, etc., they've given me free consultancy services. And I want to thank them very much for that. My prayer is that you should live for a very long time so that we can always be pushing you here and there. Secondly, another personality I would have loved to introduce to you, he happens not to be around. That is Professor G.W.K. Mason. He should have been here, but could not make it. I know by now he's daydreaming about what is going on here, and I want to appreciate him very much. They've been very useful in my progress in this university. They've really mentored me. Then, I cannot close without making reference to Dr. Turner. We all know Dr. Turner. When he was here, he put the whole of the university, especially that of Inaugural, on alert. If you see him coming and you are not wearing your socks, you just run and dodge, because he will give it to you. And he did very well for us, especially those of us at Inaugural. So when it comes to health issues, we are very conscious. So, Daddy, thank you very much. Then I would also like to make a short presentation about my brother George. George, get up. George happens to be my immediate brother. He comes up, and though he looks very big, you know, Americans, they develop only the tummy. But those of us here, so I'm older than him. But interestingly, at the university, he went ahead of me. So he became a lecturer at UCC, and I was then in Finland doing my master's. He urged me on to come down immediately to Ghana, and that I'll get a job to do. I was so stubborn, I decided to go to Canada. I wasted 2 years there, and then I came down, and then I came to UDS. Immediately I came, he decided to go for his PhD. Then I told him, George, I'm coming up. Fortunately, I also got my PhD. Before I realized he was an associate professor, and I was a senior lecturer, I said, George, I'm coming. When I completed that task, the next day he became a tenure, a full professor. I said, wow, this is another hurdle. Gradually, I worked at it, and we are now all full professors. Thank you. But your question is, what is my next task? Because I'm someone who works. So if you don't give me another challenge, I'll be wasting myself, and I don't want that. So give me another task. Thank you.
Another round of applause, please. It's not easy to be a professor. Thank you all for coming. You'll be refreshed at the UDS ICT. Everyone is invited. May we stand?
She's every dream come true. I keep a vision of you. I say, give my hand. God, oh, as I sit here on this bed,
followed by the family and the rest of us. Thank you all for coming.
I gaze across the water as the boats go by. They say to swim this current would be suicide, but I would gladly try to be there by her side. Now she's sleeping in the house across the river, and I'm calling to her softly with this lullaby. For I know somehow, someday we'll be together, and my heart belongs to the one in the house across the river. Right across the river. Shadows slowly turn the darkness into night. She paints an emerald sunset by the evening light, with the final rays of amber sinking out of sight. She turns on the lights. Now her house is bright as I watch her slowly wandering from room to room. I can almost touch her face and smell her sweet perfume. I imagine lying next to her like silver spoons on summer afternoons. So I sing this tune while she's sleeping in the house across the river, and I'm reaching for her gently with this love.